There are 254 town meeting members, 128 constitute a quorum. We're going to debate and we'll eventually come to vote.
So I ask you to support this motion.
I see no hands. Am I missing one?
Need the community these bring together.
I was an elementary school teacher.
I think what we're hearing two separate issues.
Public art's been an important part of this community.
I urge you to vote yes on this proposal.
Call the previous question.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. No. We'll have an electronic vote.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.
Hello, my name is Carol Gray, and you are watching Conversations About Town Meeting. This program is dedicated to interviewing people about town meeting's history and also the value in Amherst. And we invite you to send your ideas. If any of you are interested in being guests, we welcome new guests, and you can email us at amhersttownmeetinghistory@gmail.com. Amherst Town Meeting has a long history going back to 1759. On March 19th, 1759, it was called to order by the moderator at that time, D. Ebenezer Dickinson. And here we are today. We're here with two guests. Michael Greenebaum is a longtime town meeting member. He is also the former principal for a little more than 2 decades. He also served on the subcommittee for town meeting policies and procedures, a subcommittee of the town meeting coordinating committee, and we're very happy to have him with us. We also have with us Tim Scalona, and he is a sophomore at UMass who has decided to run for town meeting. So we're very happy to have both of you. And I think we'll start off talking to Tim about his plunge into civic engagement and politics. So, Tim, tell us a little bit more about what you do in school and what your background is, and then we'll get into your interest in town meeting.
So, at UMass, I am studying a variety of disciplines. I often joke about how I cannot really figure out a path that I'm going on. It's more of a sort of a degree of disciplines from biochemistry to political science, sociology, economics, and Spanish, and English. So I really don't have as much of an idea academically as more of I have a lot of interests and I have to figure out where to funnel them into. But what I know for sure is that I want to pursue political science, sociology, and economics to a point, and biochemistry as well.
Okay.
With a little Spanish thrown in there too.
Yeah, and I see that you've been active with student government at UMass. You're part of the Student Senate, right?
Yeah, I have been a part of the Student Government Association for around a year and a half now, a little bit more now that we've started the January month. But during that time, I have used that position as a senator to advocate for low-income students on the campus and to sort of push the chancellor and administration and the UMass system to adopt policies and more ways of supporting higher education, so it's not as much of a pressing, unaffordable institution, so that it increases access and so that there isn't as much economic disparity on the campus as a whole.
Yeah. Well, that's great, and I see from your resume that you've also done work in a variety of areas as a volunteer for the food pantry, and you even do the fencing club.
Yes,
right?
A wide variety of clubs on campus.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Now, what made you decide to run for town meeting?
So I would say it's been built up for me for a long time. I've been looking for ways to get involved in the political sphere, and I would say it comes from me being a low-income student specifically, and from being someone who is the oldest of 7 siblings in total. Wow. With my parents, and beyond that, having the experience of being homeless for 6 or so years prior to this.
Wow.
And I would say just that feeling of powerlessness that comes with being in a high poverty environment and traveling under the guise of the Massachusetts shelter system from hotels and motels sort of makes you feel trapped. And I was sort of done feeling, I didn't want to feel trapped and powerless anymore, so bent on survival as I was. So throwing myself into UMass, like on-campus politics and advocacy was sort of the bridge to sort of leaving that sphere of survival and like actually trying to start moving on from it and seeing what I can do about the larger problem that while affects me personally, affects so many people, and they suffer in silence and their voices aren't heard because people don't want to hear them in the larger political sphere that we have in the government today. But I would say that has pushed me into town meeting because I feel like it's a good avenue, a next step to sort of advocating for people like myself who often aren't represented in other political institutions.
Yeah, wow. Well, thanks for sharing that story with us. Was it living in Massachusetts that you were homeless, or when it was?
Starting in 2012, yeah. I were originally in a middle class family.
Yeah.
The 2008 hit, stepfather lost his job, and it just started a crippling effect of homelessness.
Wow.
From, like, at first we were able to afford hotels and motels because that was the only option available for such a large family. But then as time went on, we were forced to like use the shelter system, which isn't a bad option to take. It just, the shelter system dictates where you are in the state.
Yeah.
So I was going to school in Wilmington, Massachusetts, which is around Lowell, 30 minutes northwest of Boston.
Yeah.
And I was living in Holyoke and commuting every day to school with my siblings.
Wow.
So it was definitely a long and hard experience, but I think it's shaped me into who I am, and I think I know a lot more about life than I would have had this not happened.
Oh, absolutely, and boy, you certainly are using your experience and channeling it in a way that will really help many people, hopefully.
I hope so.
And thank you for running for town meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely,
no problem,
thank
no
you.
problem.
And so for people who maybe might consider having this courage that you have to run for a town meeting, could you tell us, what did you actually have to do physically to get on the ballot?
Getting on town meeting actually wasn't hard at all. I took the bus to the town hall from my campus, maybe took 10 minutes or so, and then walked into the town hall, and I had to like sign a piece of paper and like put my name on the ballot. So I would say as a whole, just like for me getting there and then like going to the town hall and putting my name down and address and whatnot, took maybe like 15 minutes. It wasn't even that difficult. I was kind of surprised, actually. I would have expected it to be a longer process to do so.
Right, and were you already registered in Amherst when you went to get on the ballot?
Yeah, I was. My campus last year did on-campus registration for the presidential election.
Terrific.
So I was already registered in the town of Amherst since November last year.
That's great. I've also heard that people can even register at the same time. If you're new to Amherst, you can register to vote at the town clerk's office, and then you can say, I'd like to run for town meeting. They give you a paper, one signature, your own, give it back, and you're on the ballot.
Yeah, that's what they told me when I was there as well.
Yeah, terrific.
It wasn't always like that.
Is that right? How did it used to be, Michael?
Well, it used to be you had to have 10 signatures, which doesn't sound
I didn't know that.
so bad, but I was eager to have it become much easier to run for town meeting.
Yeah.
I wanted a lot of people to be on that ballot.
Absolutely.
And I mean, Tim is a good example of why it's so wonderful that his signature alone is all that's needed.
Isn't that great? So how long ago was it that it was 10 signatures to get on the ballot?
Oh, it was sometime after 1996, but I can't tell you the exact date.
Were you part of the group that helped change that?
Yeah, I really wanted to make it as easy as possible to get on the ballot.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if there was going to be a campaign in each precinct, that would be great. Then people should talk to each other and learn about the people who are running.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be a hurdle to get on that ballot.
Right, right. Well, so was it a town meeting initiative to change that, or was it a referendum? Do you remember how that happened?
It was in 1996 there was a town meeting. What was it called? The town meeting study committee. Which made this recommendation.
I see, yeah.
And it's too long ago now. I can't remember exactly what happened after that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it ever came to town meeting.
Yeah.
And there's still people who feel that it should be more difficult to get on the ballot. But I'm very glad that it isn't.
I think it's terrific. And so you're actually part of the committee that, or you were part of the committee that works on town meeting procedures and policies. Could you say a little bit about what that committee was working on, or what issues do they look at?
Yes, I mean, it's a new committee. It's been about a year and a half, or almost 2 years now, I guess.
Right.
And it seemed to meet a need that wasn't there. A lot of people complain about this and that about town meeting, but there isn't a mechanism which allows town meeting to address it. Now this committee provides that mechanism.
Yeah.
And we've done a couple of things, several things, I think, in the past year that are important. One sounds silly, but I think it's made a big difference. And that is really requiring the town meeting members use a system of red, green, and white cards if they wish to be recognized to speak. Because that gives the moderator much more of an opportunity to balance the positions being the speakers.
If you could explain what each of those colors means for people who are new.
Red means that I oppose the motion on the floor, and green means I support it, and white means either I don't know, or I want to ask a question, or I need more information, something like that.
Yep. And so the moderator will often alternate between red and green to ensure that there's a full debate.
Yes, that's the point, and he has said that this really helps, even though it seems like a relatively trivial thing.
Yeah.
And then it's done a couple of things that I think are really significant. It started a system of meetings whereby precinct candidates for town meeting can meet their precinct neighbors who they want to vote for them.
Sure.
And that seems like should have been going on for a long time, but it wasn't. Last year was the first time.
Yeah.
And this year on March 17th, I think, will be the second time.
So you'll be invited to that, Tim. It's a way for voters to come and meet the candidates.
One day at the middle school, all precincts and all candidates have different rooms to meet.
Yeah.
It's
very excited for it.
Yeah.
And now the third thing that I'm really excited about is a new committee that we proposed and that town meeting agreed to last fall. And it's called the Town Meeting Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
And its purpose is to really vet articles on the warrant, on the town warrant, which is a list of motions that the town meeting will be dealing with, and show the benefits and the impacts that this may have in town. Because committees that bring the motions speak in favor of them, which is perfectly fine. I mean, that's what you expect them to do.
Sure.
But some of them are very complicated. Some of them have more than one side, and this committee will help town meeting by addressing them. Not necessarily recommending, but saying, here's the impact that this will have in the town, both good and possibly bad.
Yeah, no, that's very valuable. And I was a member of the Town Meeting Coordinating Committee for quite a few terms. And Town Meeting Coordinating Committee, the members are elected from town meeting. I think it's six members, is that right?
Maybe more. But.
And part of the function of the Town Meeting Coordinating Committee is to help educate town meeting. So there's numerous ways that happens. And this advisory committee, I think, is going to work in conjunction with Town Meeting Coordinating Committee. But for example, there's something called a warrant review, which is, and anyone can come, voters can come. Certainly town meeting members are urged to come, and they go through the warrant is what's the name for the entire list of things that will be discussed. And each thing is called an article. And so the warrant review, as the name implies, goes over all the different articles before town meeting. And it's also televised on Amherst Media. Amherst Media has been terrific with town meeting, by the way. You can watch town meeting on Amherst Media. There are replays, so you can click on it even if you can't watch it at the time it's playing. And then there are other ways to learn about town meeting. For example, the precinct meetings. Have you been very involved with precinct meetings, Michael?
No, I haven't, but the Town Meeting Coordinating Committee certainly has.
Sure.
And it provides an opportunity for town meeting members and anybody else, as you said, go over the motions that are likely to come to the floor and to talk about them and ask questions about them.
Yep. And so for people who might be new to the whole framework, the town is divided into 10 precincts. Each precinct has 24 representatives in town meeting, so there are 240 representatives total. And the precinct meetings are in the couple weeks before the town meeting happens. They have meetings. It used to be one per every 1 or 2 precincts. I think now they have about 4 or 5 scattered around town, and you can actually go to any precinct meeting that fits your schedule. I've always tried to go to the one for precincts 7 and 8, which is usually a pretty thriving debate. And we have good attendance. We have, I'd say at least 20 to 25 people. And oftentimes a member of the planning board will come, people who have brought petition articles. Petition articles are issues that are brought by members of the public. You have to have 10 signatures on a petition to bring it to the floor of town meeting in the spring. It's a higher number of signatures for the fall. But that's another great way for the public to be involved. And one thing I think we could do better is advertising that these different ways to become educated about town meeting exist. I think a lot of people don't know that the public can come to precinct meetings and to the warrant review.
And the public can come to town meeting sessions and speak.
And they do. Yes, that's right. That's right. So since we have Tim here, we're talking about the role of young people in town meeting. I was wondering what each of you thought about just that, like college students playing a role in town meeting. Do you think that, I'm curious to know from Tim, what interests college students about town meeting? How do you think that your perspective will contribute to the overall? And also from Michael, how have you seen young people contribute to town meeting over the years? So whichever of you wants to jump in.
I can go first, I suppose.
Sure.
I would say the town meeting sphere, given that a lot of the precincts are based in like college campus areas with a large population of students who, while aren't there, may or may not be there year round, are populated by students and the issues affect them, like myself. So I feel like because of that, there needs to be some student representation within these bodies to sort of advocate for the issues that affect students in terms of housing and sustainability, affordable housing specifically, around like UMass, for example. And I think bringing young voices into the body itself will give a more diverse perspective, and maybe solutions or different ideas will come up that the town meeting at hand may not have been able to see from their perspective, and that's not a bad thing. Perspectives, everybody has a different story and way of looking at things. But I just think of bringing the young voice into the political sphere of the town of Amherst is something that will not inhibit, it will only further the conversation and start maybe a conversation on topics that haven't even been brought up yet.
Sure.
And I think bringing the students in, it will further support for the issues at hand, and it will also introduce students like myself that may not have as much experience in the political atmosphere into local politics so that they have more experience and can start making greater change on these levels and then move on possibly or stay at these levels and make change in that way.
Sure, yeah. Michael, what do you think?
I keep thinking back to when I was a very young student.
Yeah.
And in fourth grade maybe it was, or maybe it was, we studied civics and we studied how government was organized.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a fairy tale. I mean, it told us sort of a perfect view of how government was organized. And government is not perfect. Government is a human creature.
Right.
And one of the things about town meeting that's been wonderful in Amherst is the way it has allowed young children in Amherst to get closer to government.
Yes.
I mean, last year or year before last, that we actually had an article that was developed in an elementary school classroom, and it had to be brought by a member of town meeting, but the kids were all there to speak to it.
The eighth graders,
Eighth graders, yes.
Yep.
Well, and
could you talk a little more about that petition article?
No, I can't.
Well, I'll throw it out there. It was the middle schoolers were bringing a petition to change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day.
I love that.
And it was, I think we were one of the first communities to do that in the state of Massachusetts. And there they were, all presenting, and they have a web page about it. I found a lovely picture of them. But I'll try to include that.
That was fantastic. But I mean, on a more general level, with 240 members in town meeting, that's 240 roughly families that are involved in town meeting, and those kids see adults being active members of their government.
Absolutely.
When I grew up, and even when I was an adult in other towns in the Middle West, the government was remote.
That's right.
I didn't know. We has something called a board of trustees in the town I grew up in.
Yep.
And they were chosen by some kind of caucus system.
Yep. Yep.
And we just didn't know anything about it. And this is so dramatically different.
Totally, yeah, and even I'm curious to know from those young people who brought that petition article, how empowering that must be, that you literally changed the name of a holiday forever in a town just because you discovered it needed to be done and you did it, and very empowering. I expect some of those people might go on to be civically engaged as adults. You were a principal, Michael. What have you seen? Have you seen how civic engagement affects some of these people later on?
Well, sometimes I'd look at people sitting in front. A lot of them were Marks Meadow students. So,
That's
yes,
where you were.
I'd like to say that we were responsible for,
there you go.
for their excellence, but that may be claiming too much.
What years were you the principal at Marks Meadows?
From 1970 to 1991.
Wow, well, it was an excellent school. I'm sorry we lost that.
Me too.
Tim, I was wondering what you think you might get out of town meeting. I know you'll contribute. I can tell already that you have your perspective and you're articulate. How do you think it might help you later on with whatever your life goals are?
It's been a question in my mind for a long time. I think the introduction to local politics in that way will sort of allow me to first of all allow me to understand in which direction I want to put my life, whether that be into politics, further advocacy, or any other realm, because as I explained earlier, my interests sort of are all over the place.
Yeah.
But also, to the point, I think it will allow me to finally truly see what I can do with the experience and my history and my story. And while I have used outlets on campus to do it through the student government and writing op-eds for the newspaper and the Center for Education Policy and Advocacy, I think bringing myself into local politics will allow for a greater understanding of how I can use that experience, not only for my peers, but for adults and people of greater age than I that may have a similar experience, may not have that experience, but just to open the perspective up to adult students and people across all ages, backgrounds. I think that would be incredibly useful for me as a person, just to see how I can funnel that experience into something greater than myself.
Yeah. Now, do you aspire to run for politics later in life, do you think?
I've considered it before. Yeah. I don't truly know, because I understand that at times politicians, especially the ones that we often see in the media, are easily, I would say, manipulated by forces around them, whether that be by the invisible hand, I would say, money. And I haven't wanted to succumb to that, but I think that that idea contributes to voter apathy, and it will prevent students and younger people like myself from getting into politics because of the status quo. But to change that, I think by inserting myself into politics and sort of trying to redefine that image and proving that I, as a person at whatever age, will not allow myself to be bought and against all the stereotypes of politicians today, I think it would just be an incredibly enlightening experience. And maybe politics, maybe, we'll have to see. I have a long way to go.
Yeah, well, I think one nice thing about town meeting is it's a great training ground to learn about how to participate in politics. And I've been looking at some of the old archives of people that were in town meeting. I saw John Oliver's name was there. I saw various leaders, and I noticed that a lot of people who later ran for townwide boards started in town meeting.
Oh yeah.
It's what other thoughts do you have about how town meeting helps to shape people for later civic engagement? Do you have personal experiences about that?
Well, just as you said, I've watched a number of, I've been here a long time now.
Sure.
But, so I've watched people start.
Yeah.
Marks Meadow people, especially.
Right.
Whom I knew in kindergarten.
Wow.
Become chairs of the select board.
I see. Yeah.
assistant town manager.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and others serve on committees, and we had a certain kind of engagement at Marks Meadow that I think was also useful to them, but that's another story. We can talk about that sometime. But I mean, to be involved, to be not a bystander or say it's somebody else's job, to say it's my job, is a mindset that I think town meeting generates and nurtures.
Yes, and by the way, I wanted to mention that you have a blog, and if people are interested in reading more about your views about town meeting and other issues, what's your blog address, Michael?
Michael Greenebaum blog. Michael Greenebaum with an E in the middle, GREENEBAUM .blogspot.com.
Okay, great.
And I'm talking about town meeting. I'm talking about the current debate about the future of Amherst governance, and I have things going back a ways too.
And part of your experiences, you were on the Charter Commission back in what year was that?
I was elected in 1993.
Okay.
And was on the commission that brought forth the first charter proposal to Amherst,
I see.
which was defeated, like all the other charter proposals so far have been. It was an interesting charter proposal because it did not propose to do away with town meeting. It proposed to have a smaller town meeting.
That's interesting.
And it made some changes to the notion of the select board, turned it into a kind of town council, and so the two could coexist very nicely.
I see.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, I think we have more to talk about, so we're going to take a break now and come back for another discussion. Thank you very much for joining us for the first segment.